What's up, everybody? Dead Girl here, coming at you on a Wednesday evening. It's been a minute. I haven't done a live show in probably about a week. I took last week off because I've been doing all the haunts and all the spooky fun stuff. If you guys missed all that, go over to my YouTube channel, check all that stuff out. But tonight, I have a very, very special guest here with us. We have Bruce, is it Costello?
Yes.
Yay! Bruce Costello is with us, and you are an award-winning Central Florida playwright and performer.
I've been called worse things.
I mean, I'm going to stick with the good things tonight. We're going to talk about all the good things this evening. So I know there are a lot of people that are just tuning in that are, kind of checking us out this evening. For those that don't know you or aren't familiar with you or anything that you've worked on, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I am Central Florida based. I'm about as Orlandoan as it gets without being born in Orlando. My sort of background is as I've been performing for almost 20 years. And then back in 2016, I started producing independent theater with a group of friends. So basically what that means is just putting on your own shows wherever you can put them. So we would do places like beer gardens, coffee shops, and then
nice.
and then back in 2019 I set out on my own and took on the name BC Theatricals.
Nice.
And I have been touring the U.S. at various theater festivals, putting on different one-person shows. My most probably well-known show is I wrote a show about Soviet space dogs called Mutnik.
Oh my God, yes. You had me at Soviet space dogs.
I'm a sucker for anything Soviet kitsch or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I got to take that to the largest fringe theater festival in North America this last summer in Edmonton, in Canada. I got to take it to Kansas City, their fringe festival, and I got named audience favorite. When it premiered here in Orlando, got a bunch of awards for that too. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Kind of my jam.
Now, I have to ask, has anybody filmed your performances so that people could find it if they wanted to?
So there might be unofficial things floating around. So one of the big boy sort of professional things that I am working toward is getting a good sort of camera person on deck.
Okay.
So I can have a sizzle reel or whatever. But the sort of unfortunate part of the scrappy DIY aspect of what I do is sometimes the things are just one-offs or only for a weekend.
Gotcha.
So by the time I have everything in a row and I'm okay, time to do the show, I'm oh wait, I could have had someone record that. So but I do some silly short videos on my Instagram page.
Okay.
And so I'm dabbling more with that because I realize that people do like to be able to see what you do.
Yes, and Instagram is very, very huge as far as that goes. That's kind of the place to be right now because a lot more people are on Instagram than they are on Facebook or even Twitter anymore. So I mean, that's doing more like that on Instagram. I think is huge.
I think the algorithm is especially a little bit kinder to creatives. I mean, all the algorithms. We could go on and on about that. But just the oppressive weight of the data, destroying your artwork. But but I do find that it's easier, I think, to engage with people on Instagram when you have a visual medium like that. I think people respond to it a little bit more readily than on say Facebook or even on Twitter, because Twitter's God knows what, Wild Wild West.
Yeah, Twitter's a no-holds-barred, just whatever, as long as you can get X amount of characters in, and then you've got to, comment to yourself 30 times for people to see it. So, yeah, that one, I'm still not fully invested in Twitter, just because I don't like to tone words down.
Yes. It's also, I feel like Twitter is such a, I mean, we could go, again, we could go on and on, but, that's definitely not my wheelhouse either, I would say. I'm not a Twitter aficionado.
Now, if somebody was looking for you, where can they find, what's your Instagram handle that they should follow you on?
Yeah. So for all of my creative endeavors, it's all under at BC Theatricals.
Okay.
So that's on Facebook, that's on Instagram, and then my website is also bctheatricals.com too.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Now, I gotta ask, because I saw the name and it intrigued me, and I started to read a little bit about it, and I was like, well, sure, I would like some more information. So what exactly is what exactly is a spooky and gay cabaret? Like, what does this entail?
So last October, I staged the flagship spooky and gay, and so it didn't have the cabaret moniker, but it spiritually is the same thing. Okay. So I have always had an affinity for horror and like haunt culture and just anything spooky. I have also always been gay, so those
they go well together.
Peanut butter, chocolate, and yeah, so it was sort of like a logical progression, because I'd been doing a bunch of, as I previously stated, like other one-person shows, and then helping create some other one-person shows for people, and I'd wanted to do something that was spooky or horror related, and this seemed sort of like a logical progression.
Okay.
So it's kind of because I always I'm first and foremost a writer. Like, I am a performer, but I feel like I wrote before I ever performed.
Okay.
And so like I sort of use it as a way to like make sense of the world, or like to look at the world. So and I think horror is a really great way to do that. You know, I think some of the best horror that's out there, or the most memorable horror, is horror that, you know, evaluates the world that we inhabit.
Like 2020.
So life imitates art, imitates life. So that's kind of what I try to do. It's like a queer anthology. Queer horror anthology show. So it's like a creep show or a trick or treat, in as much as they're different little vignettes or movements. Mm-hmm. But I think of them as like movements more so than stories. Okay. So like I'll have a story, but I'll follow it up with like a creepy rendition of like a pop song or like a parody song. I'll do. In the original, for example, I did a bit on essentially like an in-person BuzzFeed article. I ranked the worst Halloween candies. So it's kind of whatever I want it to be. It's fun. It's silly. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and that's kind of true to who I am as a person. Like I think there are serious moments, but I don't want to make people feel bad. I think especially in 2020, you know, we don't need to feel any worse than we already feel.
Right.
I think it's just more, the spirit of it is more like trying to see the world through a different lens, or like maybe me trying to highlight things that I find to be funny or fun.
So I gotta ask then, what was the worst Halloween candy?
I mean, that goes without saying, it's circus peanuts. Like, there's no...
Yeah, they're kind of bad. I think it's like a lot of people throw candy corn in that mix. And yeah. I love this stuff. I don't know why. I've loved it since I was a kid. And I mean, circus peanuts are they're not great, but they're not like black licorice for me.
Oh,
so
that was on the list too.
Okay.
Yeah, Necco wafers were on there. Candy corn was also on there, with honorable mention for the pumpkin shaped ones.
What? No, I love those. We literally just got a bag the other day because I was like, I need this in my life before the end of the season.
Listen, like, I used to eat crowns as a child too. It's okay. Like, no judgment. This is a positive zone.
It's totally, I mean, you're not wrong. It does have a crayon-like, not that I've eaten crayons before, but it does have a crayon-like texture to them. So, okay. Fine. At least the chat's loving candy corn. So thank you guys for showing some candy corn love.
Sorry, guys.
Appreciate it. Different strokes. So I take it, wait, so you're not going to be offering candy corn at the spooky and gay
No.
picnic? Oh, bring your own.
So there will be snacks. We can talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll get into all that.
Candy corn's not on the menu.
If you bring candy corn, you're out. That's it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Gate, yeah. we have a cattle prod for such events. No, we don't.
You gotta hide it.
Contraband.
Oh my goodness. So now this is something that you've done it before. Why did you decide to bring it back again? Were you just like, you had a blast with it last time and you were like, well, let's do this. Let's make some good memories. Yeah, no,
the reception was great. I mean, like the turnout was really nice, and like it was something that I didn't, because sometimes you do things and you're like, okay, that was that thing, and I can leave it and let it die.
Right.
This was one of those that I knew that I could find other things, or I could revisit and still come up with different ideas. So even after like I had just finished the first one, I knew going into 2020 that it was something I wanted to do. Obviously, COVID had its
own agenda.
Yeah. So I was actually supposed to do another show over the summer as well, as a psychological thriller about Bob Ross.
Oh my God. Yes.
Which we can talk about some other time. But so that was, I love the spooks. Like I'm into scary things. And so I definitely had to sort of reevaluate what my year looked like.
Right.
And I had multiple people reach out to me about the place I live at, about, you should do stuff on your lawn. It's so big, it's so huge. Oh. And so the more that gestated in my brain, the more I was like, okay, well, let me just like walk my yard and see like what 6 feet looks like, what 12 feet looks like.
Right.
And so essentially it worked out to where I could comfortably fit like 12 individual patches basically. And that was being generous. Like that was more than 6 feet. Like if I really wanted to, the numbers I worked out, I could have done a lot more. Oh, but, wow. Yeah, so it's a big yard. Like it's obnoxious.
Now, is this the front yard or the backyard?
Front yard.
Okay.
Front yard. Yeah. It's set really far back from the street, and it's kind of nice because the house has these like big creepy trees in back too, and like some creepy trees out front.
So built-in backdrop. You're good.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, so it kind of was my hope is to like do more things like this. Mm-hmm. Because in-person performance is not going to come back in the way that it was for quite a while. I would love to be able to have it be the kind of space where I could have other artists do their shows, do residencies, things like that. But let's get past this one first.
see how this one does. Now, so this you're doing at home, so it's a private residence. And I was checking out your website, so huge tip number one is stop at a gas station and pee before you get there, because there are no public restrooms. No matter how much you beg and plead, you're not allowed to go in Bruce's house and use the potty.
It's, I feel bad going to my own bathroom sometimes. So like, I don't, like the things I do, like TMI, but so I not that I don't love y'all, but yeah, it definitely, I would be remiss to invite super strangers to do the deed.
Check out the bathroom.
Yeah.
Now, have you figured out like parking and stuff? Is it going to be street parking? Is there a parking lot that's nearby that people can kind of hang out at?
So this is the fun thing. I'm actually not dropping the location until a few days prior.
Okay.
So, but I will say that I am collaborating with, there's plenty of businesses near where I am that are like walking distance.
Oh, perfect.
So for reference, I'm near Fairbanks and Edgewater in that vicinity. So, and there's plenty of businesses along there, like literally like
everywhere.
Less than exactly. So, and I'm going to be collaborating with them as far as parking is concerned. So I definitely do encourage, if you're coming with a group, to try to carpool.
Yeah.
But there should be plenty of options. Like, don't sweat it in that regard.
Okay, that's awesome. That's really good to know. So thank you so much for that information. So again, the location will be revealed, obviously, if you've purchased a ticket. Otherwise, like, you're not getting Bruce's address. I'm sorry.
No.
Not gonna happen. Maybe shoot him a DM. I mean, listen,
who's to say?
Don't know. But so that's awesome. Now you mentioned before that you're doing it in the front yard and you're kind of trying to separate everybody. Are you like designating spots? Do you have someone that's gonna be there that's gonna be like, okay, group A, you guys sit here, and then you guys sit here, and are you gonna kind of work it out that way, or hope that people know enough to kind of sit farther apart on their own?
So the thought was, because I myself am quite dumb, so I love to idiot proof things however possible, me proof them essentially, right? So what the system I've kind of devised is I'll have stakes in the yard.
Okay.
And very Buffy the Vampire Slayer of me, but
nice.
And I've been actually over the past night or two painting them different colors and then numbering them. So the way I've kind of sussed it out is the order in which people purchase will be the closer to the stage, and it'll stagger out from there. So you can have any number between 1 and 12. And you go to the front of my yard for check-in. There'll be a person with a clipboard. You give them your information. They say, oh, right over to number 1. And you bring your goods. I know this is one of the things you were going to bring up, but I'll bring it up too. Because it is my yard, there are no seats. That's a novel concept, right?
Bring your own.
Tradition, yeah, the tradition I'm following is like Symphony Under the Stars or like Shakespeare in the Park. Yes. So bring camping chairs, picnic blankets, like whatever is going to make you comfortable. It should be to where everyone's staggered and there'll be like few enough people to where you can kind of figure out your own situation. Okay. So I wanted to give people the liberty to kind of figure that out for themselves. Initially, I was like, oh, I'm going to buy, like a dozen picnic blankets and wash them every night. And then the more I thought about
that's a lot of work.
Yeah. And like, also from like a COVID perspective, I was like, well, like, how do I know that it's 100% safe? Like, I don't know. Right. So, yeah.
Now, I know it's an outside event. Are you asking people to mask up when they're there watching their performance? Are you letting them take it off as long as they're within that 6 feet? Like, what, if I'm coming to your event, like, do I bring my mask? Do I make sure it's on unless I'm like taking a drink or taking a bite or something?
So as of right now, so I am trying to I have gone through a lot of soul searching for the right secret sauce, because I think anyone that's running an event right now is trying to figure out, what best practices are.
Right.
The determination that I have made, and that I'm pretty sure I am following through with at this point, is masks during the performance. Okay. Even though it is outside, I still want to, for those people who might feel uncomfortable or maybe don't, go to functions a lot, I want to be able to create like a safe Halloween party. Exactly. And so obviously if you're drinking, because there will be snacks and there will be beverages, that's the exception. But we will also have extra masks in the event. Someone forgets it or anything like that. So
that's
yeah,
awesome.
I think we all have to lead with a little grace nowadays, especially. Yes. Like, I think it's very easy to kind of get caught up in the hullabaloo of a global pandemic. But yes, I think especially like leading with a little kindness toward one another, I think that's kind of the germ of it all.
Yeah, I think that's
the germ of it all.
It's no. And I think and that's right. Take things with that grain of salt, because right now things are a little different. So all this, any performance in general is going to be different, and things aren't going to go back to that normal crowd that you're used to seeing for a while. And I think that a lot of people have kind of accepted that, and that's okay. But I was going to ask you too. Now, you mentioned, you guys would have snacks and drinks. So are you guys selling snacks and drinks as well?
Yes. So there'll be cashless transactions. I was actually workshopping before I got on the call. I was food testing, I guess. I was gonna do like a you know, like the Chicago mix popcorn
Yeah.
situation. So I'm trying to develop a Halloween sort of inspired combination. So we're gonna have baggies of that for sale, probably traditional popcorn, some adult libations, perhaps. Some mulled cider is on the agenda.
Nice.
Yeah, I wanted to, nothing insane, obviously.
Like, you're not going to get, like, a steak dinner served to you on your blanket as you're watching. It's not happening. So eat dinner before, right? Next year, we're coming out, we're cooking, we're barbecuing, we're grilling, it's on. But this year, just, I would kind of say, like, eat dinner before, and then, you know, definitely snack. Now, can people bring their own snacks and drinks if they want to? Like, can I drag my cooler from the house and be like, bam, and set up camp? Because that's, I think of, like, concert, outdoor things. I always, like, bring a cooler and stuff.
My stance on it is, like, light snacks are fine.
Yeah.
So, you know, no Publix rotisserie chicken situation. But if you want to bring, like, you know, like, some candy or, like, whatever, totally cool. Being that it is a private residence, the only thing I ask is that people use Boy Scout rules. So if they do bring something, please just take it off the property, because I have 3 days of trash to worry about.
Yeah, so AKA, if you bring stuff that is going to be trash, just take it home with you and dispose of it in a trash receptacle at the house.
Within reason. Like, I'm not going to, like, you know, tackle you to the ground if you use my trash can, like, whatever. But, but yeah, so I want to have that option open for people if that's something that they'd be open to.
Okay. No, that's awesome. Now, let's see. I do have to ask too, do you have like a set age limit where, you know, maybe is it good for like my 8-year-old nephew, or do you recommend like an older age? Is it more of an adult oriented type show?
So, I have also soul searched this answer. So my answer is, if you have a precocious teen, like early teen or preteen, I think it would be fine. So for example, like, I used to go to a lot of Rocky Horror as a 13-year-old, and you know, in hindsight, that probably wasn't always the most age appropriate, but like, I got it, you know, I was savvy. So my stance on it is, if you think your child is mature enough, and the way that, I don't know, the way that kids are nowadays, like, I feel like there's nothing I can do that might shock or offend.
Because they've already seen it on TikTok or on YouTube or on Facebook or on whatever other social media outlets are out there. They've already seen it all. So chances are something like, you know, Rocky Horror these days is pretty tame compared to some of the stuff that's already out. And I mean, same thing. I went to Rocky when I was a young teen. You know, I played at one point. I was Columbia for a while. So I mean, it's, you know, I love that kind of stuff, and I love theater, and I love that you have this wonderful idea that you're bringing to the community and that people can come and they can visit. And I've got what? So I've got my friend John Lean in the chat. I don't know if you've met him or not, but he's talking about how he's a precocious something or other. And yes, John, you very much are. I love you, but you are. Now, are you near, just to get a gauge, I'm going to throw a business name out. Are you near Embellish Effects at all?
If I was to say a business that I was closest to, it would be the Black Sheep, the textile store. Yes, I am super duper close to there. Okay, cool.
I'm just trying to figure out if maybe I know somebody down there that I can be like, hey, call this guy. Maybe, you know, use his parking lot. So I'm trying to make connections here.
It's across the street from that plaza with like the Pizza Hut and like the, what else is there? Belanger Bagels. Have you been there yet?
No. Is it good?
It's a Montreal style bagel. It's great. A bagel place. It's really good. Yeah, so in that hemisphere, Fairview Shores, I guess, is technically the neighborhood.
I may have to check that out.
Yeah, if nothing else, like, come early or something, right? Like,
right, just come early, come like real early, and stop and get a bagel, and then do something else, and then come back later and enjoy the show. And twofer. It's a twofer. It really is. And no, John, you're not getting Bruce's address and a list of his fears. That's not happening.
joke's on you. I have too many fears to list. No.
That list is too long, and we don't have enough time to go through all that this evening. So the Spooky and Picnic Cabaret really is kind of like it's picnic style, so it's outside. Bring like your lawn chairs, bring your blankets. I mean, bring a pillow if you really feel the need to, I guess. Like whatever, makes you comfy is awesome. Now, how long do you have like a time frame of how long you're going to be running as far as like the time wise of the show from like, when you get up there to do your thing versus, the ending of it?
So, the show will be about an hour. Okay. That being said, these things, especially it being like an untested system, it may wind up being a little bit longer, what with late arrivals and things like that. So, and then I will also have guest performers at each performance.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and it's going to vary for each performance too. So I definitely would like to allow them sort of the real estate to do what they want to do. But for all intents and purposes, it's and on the event listings as well, I've said about an hour. Okay. So I would, let's just budget an hour 15. Don't have a pressing dinner reservation afterward. How's about that?
Right. Give yourself like an extra about little bit, 30, 45 minutes, and then do your thing. So are you doing one show a night? Are you doing multiple shows a night? Have you figured out you're just doing the one a night? Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then you're doing those shows, are going to be, what are your days running? I know you're running closer to Halloween. And I mean, let's face it, we're already in the middle of October.
How did that happen?
Listen, I woke up and I was like, it's October 1st. And then I blanked and I'm like, holy crap, we're halfway through. What is happening right now? And Christmas is in the store. And I'm already sad about it because I'm like, where's all the Halloween? Why is Christmas up right now?
I know. I went to Michael's yesterday, or the day before. And I was like, something specific. And they were like, oh, yeah, that was gone in September. And I was just like, well, what? Halloween, though? Like, I don't understand.
It's like, I love that they're putting the Halloween stuff out earlier and earlier, and I think that's great. But then in the same vein, they're also taking it away before the middle of October even happens. And it's like, listen, what if my skeleton breaks and I need a new one, like, right now? Like
skeleton.
You are ruining this and it happened. One of our skeletons broke, and the husband had to like put him back together, and we were panicking, and luckily we found one. But I'm like, what is happening? Where it's not even
you had to do skeleton triage.
Yes, in our living room, his leg was off. There was glue involved. There was yes. I'm not allowed to play with glue because I glue things and I make messes and I hurt myself, so I had to supervise, and it's a thing. But that's just it. Like, for you, like, for your performances and stuff, you probably have to make sure that you have everything already because half these stores already have it gone.
I know. Yeah. Well, and part of it is, like, I not that I delayed, but I don't think 100% what you need until you need it, right?
Right.
So, like, my tendency with anything like this is I make a master list of all the possible contingency items that I need, and then I sort of whittle it down from there. Yeah. But by the time I've whittled, I'm like, where the F am I going to get a pumpkin that shoots lasers out of its eyes? I don't need that, but you get the idea.
But if you did need it this time in October, Christmas is already out, and you're out of luck unless you're on Amazon trying to find it and hurry up, and get it through Prime.
I'm like, Jeff Bezos, give me my laser pumpkin.
I need it right now. But I mean, I completely, I understand that. So, have you gone through this? I'm sure you're doing like rehearsals and stuff like that, just kind of to get yourself ready and to figure out what else you need. So for something like this, like how long did it take you to actually plan everything out?
So, every individual show has its own sort of process. And I hate to get like too foofy woo woo with it, like, cause I feel like that's such an artist thing. It's like, oh, my process. But truly, like, I feel like, so with the spooky and gay shows, or at least this one, and I also did a short film version actually. So I'm not a film editor at all. And, Orlando Fringe does these, like First Fringe Fridays. They're like little one-off. Yeah. And so I did one, and in a turn of events, 10 minutes of it just evaporated moments before I had to export it.
Oh,
right.
no.
So in that vein, like, I find that these sort of are a little bit more like what's the word? Scrapbooks. Like it's ideas that kind of evolve at different times and different gestation periods.
Okay.
And they all kind of come together to create a cohesive whole. So like I will actually have like a document for just show ideas in general. And if ever I encounter like a news story that I like, or if ever I encounter like a premise that's fun to me, I'll jot it down on there, and then I'll save it for a time when I'm feeling creative and I don't know what to write.
Yeah.
And so, like, for example, this, like, one of the things I'll be discussing is, it's kind of a downer, but the upstairs lounge massacre in Louisiana, which was the largest wholesale, like, basically death of a group of, like, queer people before the Pulse shooting. This was in, like, the 60s. But I had never heard of this at all, or remotely at all. This was news to me. And so I always thought that it's something I've sat on for a while. And I was like, this is something I want to use in a show at some point, or like write a show around it or whatever. And so that's something that will figure at one point in this. Whereas like some things I'll literally just be like, haha, that's stupid. So like I started writing I've always loved urban legends. I'm sure you probably have a similar affinity.
Yes.
And I just had an idea in the shower one day, and I was like, what if the hook-handed man was gay? And so that's an entire thing. It's like, and the more I've thought about it, it's kind of become its own thing. It's like, well, yeah, actually the hook-handed man's pretty freaking gay. Like, I mean, like, he terrorizes straight people and like,
that are making out in their cars, like parking. I guess is that, you know, the old-timey term for you kids in the chat and watching that aren't familiar. People back in the day used to park and they used to make out and do their thing. So yeah, I mean, you're right. He targeted straight people. He's
like very melodramatic, obviously, clearly. He's already got a bent wrist, the hook, you know, so like, just
so he must
some
be
stuff
gay.
Like that. So yeah, it like I said earlier, you know, it's kind of my way. When I write and when I create performances, it's sort of my way of making sense of the world, whether it's something I think makes sense or doesn't make sense, or I just think that's stupid and silly.
Yeah.
So I don't know, and sometimes it resonates with people, and that's awesome.
Yeah. And it's whenever you can put a comical spin on anything and to get people to laugh or to smile, especially like lately, it's huge, and people I think need that. So you know, that's awesome, and I'm getting in the peanut gallery as I'm calling my friends in chat. We have window fogging, necking. Yes, there are all the terms for making the whoopee in the cars that they have. I'm just saying, like we were talking about
Rocky, heavy petting,
yes,
seat wetting, right? Like,
yes. There's so many terms for that, but I mean, I love that spin on, you know, on him. I think that's a great spin.
Thank you.
On our Hookman. I think that's awesome. We were literally just talking about urban legends the other day with like razors and apples and things like that. Because I know, so Spooky Empire did this awesome. Are you familiar with Spooky?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so they put out a new Halloween t-shirt, and it's genius, and I absolutely adore it. And it's a little boy in his little devil Halloween costume, and he has an apple, and the apple has a razor blade in it. And I lost my mind because I was like, oh my God, I remember as a kid, like hearing that, like, you have to check your candy because there's going to be razor blades in it, and especially if it's an apple. So I saw that, and I was just like, holy shit, I'm 12 again. This is fantastic. I love it. So I love when people can kind of take, you know, things like that and kind of twist that humor aspect in it. So, you know, I think that's awesome.
I think that's like a big part of, especially why queer culture like latches onto horror a lot. Is like the idea of like the outsider, or like the idea of like, so especially like you had like in the 60s or like in 60s, even onward, like, so Psycho, right, is
Yes.
clearly like an example of like a character that's queer coded, or you have like like Silence of the Lambs or anything like that, where these are sort of the only queer characters people were getting in media growing up.
Yeah.
And
And some people weren't really putting that together either.
No,
especially like now, you and I talk about it and we look at it and we can see it, but like back then when those films came out,
totally,
that wasn't what people thought of.
Mm-hmm.
Like
no,
at
not
all.
at all. Totally not. Even like so far as like Hitchcock with like Rebecca and stuff like that. Like
yes.
you get these like very I don't know. It's just interesting that like this is like people think of sometimes as like queer horror as a genre, as like a separate thing, but I think like so much of that human experience has like infiltrated like all media that we don't even realize to an extent.
Yeah.
And I think that's really exciting to me. Like that's why I, as a queer person anyway, like really have always latched on to horror, is this idea of like the other of these, people that are outcast, but somehow like are elevated for it. Yeah. Like Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Yes. And yes. Did you see that documentary?
Yes, it's actually heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking, but I loved it so much because it shed such a light on it. It was awesome. And I have our friend John in the chat. He's like, "This is what I'm here for: deep exploration of the queer experience." You're using big words, John. All right. It's examined through horror and the grotesque. I love John. He's a dear friend of mine. He and I have kind of chatted about this a little bit. And I honestly think that I need to have a show where I have queer people on. I have, you on. I have like John come on if he wants to. And I can just use it as a platform. And you guys can discuss this because I think that it's a very fascinating subject. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people don't realize why a lot of gay people are very attracted to horror, and they don't seem to understand that it's that isolation that some of those like, let's look at Leatherface, for example.
Yeah, totally. I mean,
perfect example. Any slasher, like, yes, exactly.
Yeah, well, maybe not like Candyman. I don't know, like, but like, you know what I mean. Like, when
he's still isolated.
Yeah, he's that guy. Was Hellraiser recently even was one that came to mind. Like this group of like leather clad people who promise you this like unending pleasure and hedonism at the extent of your mortal, like at the cost of your mortal soul.
I mean, like, I've been to those parties. All right, that's
sounds like a Tuesday now,
right? But that's like it. Like it's, and I can understand. Like you look at some, a character like Leatherface or like the Cenobites, and they're those outcasts, and that's something that I can understand how they would be very much identifiable, because society is just like, oh no. Totally. And at a time it was very much that way, and nowadays, for the most part, not entirely, but for the most part, people are a lot more accepting than they were in like, the 60s and the 50s and even the 80s. So it's a very different thing. So I love the fact that there are so many fans of the genre I love that there are so many gay fans of the horror genre. It always makes me smile, because you always hear about all the straight people that love it, but when I see like all the gay people that love it, like, yes, it reaches. Yes, I understand, why that connection is there. So I would definitely like to revisit this at some point if you're game.
Oh, yeah.
And have a nice in-depth discussion about this. I think that would be awesome.
For sure. And that's the other thing that's cool is like, as a very obviously white guy, like that's the, especially with contemporary horror being what it is it's actually like being so much more accepted. It's being more intersectional too, which is really exciting. And it always kind of blows my mind when people are like upset by that, because it's like, no, this is like cool. Like it's more stories, it's more perspectives, it's more ideas, Yeah. So like I think at the end of the day, like we're only getting, more interesting stuff out of hearing from different voices, and like even down to like, it's not necessarily queer, but like, what Jordan Peele's putting out there, like that's really exciting. Like I that someone is getting that kind of a platform, and it's inspiring other people. It's a trickle down.
Yes.
So yeah, like
and it's shining a spotlight on like genre films, and especially on some of the films that most people today don't look at or wouldn't go in to look at. You know what I mean? So and it's amazing that it's kind of he's resurged the genre for some people, which is fantastic, and I'm totally all for. I mean, I need horror. I don't care, blood, guts, whatever. I don't care who does it. Just give it to me. I need it.
Viscera.
Just embowel him and I'm happy. That's all there is to it. You know? So, I mean, like, it's interesting. And then, like, with the Hellraiser series, my husband's chiming in is Clive Barker very much embodies those characters that he's created. And he's such a fascinating man, and his, like, if you look at his artwork and his stories, it's so... I don't have the right words for it. It's just amazing. It's interesting.
Him especially. I'm sure we could go on forever about all this, but like I feel like him is. What I do love about him is he is kind of like an auteur in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Like I like that he can do it all, which is you don't necessarily see in a lot of people, especially nowadays. Like, yeah I don't know.
No, I agree. But let's get back to your event as we go off on a random tangent of horror movies, which is always, listen, I'm always for it. I'm always up for it. So we're gonna make this happen. We're gonna have a queer horror talk, and it's gonna be amazing, and you guys are gonna love it. Now your event that you're hosting at the house, Spooky Gay, yay, Picnic Cabaret, which I love the name. By the way,
thank you.
It's perfect. Now you are doing your performances. This is going to be October only, if I'm not mistaken, and you're doing it. Is it the 29th through the 31st?
That's correct.
Okay, yes. And your shows are going to be 8 p.m., so you're only doing one show an evening.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned before that like people would, you have someone that's going to check folks in. How do folks get tickets? Is it an online ticket sale? Do they come up and just like fling some cash when they get there? Like,
take my money. So reservations are done on Eventbrite.
Okay.
I've taken to calling them reservations because it is like you're reserving the area to do with what you want, basically. It can accommodate 2 to 4 patrons.
Okay.
So if you do the math, it's $40 for a reservation. So if it's just you and someone else for like a date night, that's $20 a head.
So that's like dinner.
Exactly. Right. If you have like 2 other friends that, you're comfortable sharing space with, that works out to be $10 a head.
Nice.
So really not that bad at all. And the seating, the way it's structured, it'll be staggered. So you have a view of the stage.
Oh, perfect.
And I'm trying to figure out, I didn't bring this up before, but like I want to definitely experiment with it being outdoors. Like there's certain things that we can do that you can't do indoors, right? So I'm trying to figure out what the limitations and what the new avenues for that are. But
and what your neighbors are okay with you doing outside.
They're gonna have to be
suck it up, Buttercup, and deal with it, or buy a ticket and come check it out.
One of them on the side is actually unoccupied, and then the other is also fine, so it'll be kosher. And ticket sales will stop 3 hours before the show each day.
Okay.
That's just so we can pre-plan and make sure that all the reservations are good. There won't be any ticket sales at the door since there is no door.
Technically, there's no door. So if you've got, like, let's say, hypothetically, I'm just going to throw this one at you. So let's say, like, I buy a ticket. It's $40. It's for 4 of us. What if I have, like, a fifth wheel that decides that she wants to come? Is there a way to accommodate that, or does she have to go ahead and buy, like, another ticket pack?
So in that instance, I would say shoot me an email.
Okay.
We typically, the ideal would be we could figure out, for example, like to set up a group pod.
Okay.
So I've thought about also like if multiple parties that were related, we'd situate them together, so that way it'd be like an amorphous blob. But yeah, the positive of this being that it's my front yard is I can kind of do whatever I want.
Right.
But I definitely would want to encourage that, if possible, try to book through there. And if it's an extenuating circumstance, we can figure something out.
Okay. Now, do you guys have, with it being outside, and I'm I'm not cursing or anything,
Yeah.
but do you have a backup plan or anything in case it does rain? Are you guys just going to say, I'm doing it in the rain and get in the chair and flash dance style and just like, woo?
So I have absolutely had plenty of night terrors about that prospect. Being that it's Florida in October, like God only knows what happens, right?
Yeah.
It's absolutely Russian roulette. But the hope is that it will clear in time or just not rain at all.
Right.
But I'm definitely offering refunds in the event that it's, not surmountable.
Right.
Personally, I don't mind going out in the rain, but electrical equipment has some different opinions. I
mean, there's a whole other safety issue with that.
Yeah.
And I personally would not like to witness a live execution on stage. Accidentally.
It would be my final performance.
That would be the one you'd be famous for, though, kid.
Yeah.
That'd be your claim to fame right there.
He died like he lived, dead. We'll also have merch too. I forgot to say, I'm having merch made. Yeah. So I'm getting T-shirts. I had a logo made by @MaxSolarArt. You can see it on my Instagram and my Facebook page.
Okay.
But super duper cute. We're gonna have that, and we're gonna have some stickers for sale as well. So,
nice. That's exciting. I'm so excited for you. It sounds like it's
Thank
going to
you.
be so much fun. Now, so you're basically, you're the main attraction. And then you mentioned that you might have some friends come over and do a little something in
Yes.
between or towards the end or what have you as well.
So each night I'm going to have a different guest performer from the queer community.
Nice.
So I have all but one locked in, but I have my friend Logan Donahue, who is a local comedian, activist, sometime burlesque dancer, and he will be doing 2 numbers. And then my friend Joel Swanson, he is also another performer from the community as well. He's developed a narrative where he is through song telling the story about a guy he started dating, but who turned out to be a ghost.
Yes, I love that.
Ghosted him.
But
right. I told him I'd be very sad if he didn't do Hopelessly Devoted to Boo.
Yeah, he has to. It has to be a thing. I'm putting my vote in for it.
So we shall see. But they will be performing. Joel will be performing on Halloween evening, and then Logan will be performing on the 30th. Okay. So that Friday. So Thursday is still TBD.
Okay.
But
so essentially, hypothetically, you could actually come each night and get a different show because of the different guest performers that you've got. And then I'm sure you could probably change some things up too, especially, this is your baby. So, I mean, if you want to change some stuff, obviously you're going to do it.
I'm nothing if not an on-the-fly editor. So, because, your crowd's always different. The show's always different.
Yeah.
So, I'm good.
That's awesome. I'm so excited for you guys. I did drop the link for Eventbrite down in the comment section, and I will, again, share this through Facebook. And then for those of you that are watching on YouTube, the link will be in the description box down below. I do have 2 final questions, and my final questions for the evening, I love to ask everybody because I always love to see the different opinions. And since we were already talking about horror movies, just to revisit that momentarily, what is your favorite horror movie?
So this is going to probably, I don't know if it'll get me some jeers or whatever, but I'm a really big David Lynch fan.
Okay.
I know it's a controversial statement for some, but my favorite David Lynch movie, favorite horror movie is a David Lynch movie. It's Inland Empire. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I have not.
It's shot on digital video and it stars Laura Dern, and it is it's traumatic. It's hard. It's like Firewalk with Me is hard. This is harder than that.
Okay.
So that, or if I was to say a seasonal one, it'd be Trick or Treat. I just love
Trick or Treat.
I just love that movie so much. I've seen it so many times.
It's so. What's your favorite part of that movie?
Oh, I can't help but not enjoy the werewolves. I mean, like especially set to Marilyn Manson. Like, it's such a good scene. Yes. Yeah, I love that movie an awful lot. It's near and dear.
So we watch it. We watch it every year, a couple times at least. But the werewolf scene, it won me over in the beginning anyway. But once it hit the werewolf part, and I kind of knew it was coming, and they pretty much alluded it without flat out telling you. But the transformation was
totally
awesome, and it was so different. And there's nothing hotter about, a sexy individual ripping off
their skin off.
Yes, and even like their tights, just like ripping the legs. Like, it's fine. It's just it's so oddly hot. I don't know. It's just a weird, but it's. Yes, I'm a big Trick or Treat fan. I'm so happy that it's one of your favorite movies too. There's so many good things about it. It's awesome. And I know, as we've said, you're a huge Halloween fan as well. So what's your favorite type of Halloween event? Do you like to go to like horror nights, or do you prefer going to like parties? Like, what's your favorite thing to do during the Halloween season?
So, deep confession time.
Yes.
I was a huge Horror Nights fan. To the point where I was on forums and everything back in the day. I first started going in 2003, and I've been every year. I also performed the event, actually, for about 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Labor of love, but didn't do this year, obviously.
Well, I mean, I don't think anybody did.
But yeah, no, I definitely have like my roots sort of, or my heart in the haunt scene, because like there's nothing. I've done other haunts as well, and I've been to other haunts. But like people sort of knock on Universal a lot for how formulaic the houses are. Mm-hmm. But for me, it's always sort of been like the presentation, and like the sort of immersiveness. And that's what I really love, is stuff like that, or like Sleep No More, or things that sort of worlds you can inhabit. That's my ideal.
And I think a lot of people kind of feel that way, especially like your Horror Night fans, as you know, are a whole other beast of fandom on their own, which is great. But for someone like myself, and you're the same way, is you go because it's very immersive, and it's just beautiful. Like, the scenic is damn near perfect. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I go to local haunts, and I love them just as much, and I get better scares at local haunts, and I get a better experience. But visually, for me personally, like, Horror Nights is just, it's beautiful. It's, it's universal. I mean, how could it not be?
And that's the thing, is it's like, I don't look at what Universal does is necessarily like, they're tableaus almost, and that's what's exciting to me, is like oh, I'm just in this world. Whereas it's just like you're saying, like I think the liberty that local haunts allow their performers makes them more creative, makes them have to think, makes them have to sort of make better, work harder for what they do, and
improvise a lot more. Like I know, like with Horror Nights, they kind of tell you guys, like, this is your box, stay in this box, so to speak. So whereas in your your independent haunts or your smaller haunts are very like, figure it out, have fun with it, do whatever, except you can't really touch people, but do whatever and do your thing. So they do get that more creative aspect of it.
It's like, the way I always compare it is, it's like just different kinds of cakes, like, where it's like, oh, well, this one was made by a professional, but this one was homemade.
Right.
This one, it looks really pretty, but the frosting tastes kind of weird. But this one, like, you can tell it was made with love, even though it's like a little lopsided.
Right. It's lopsided. The frosting's half falling off, but it tastes phenomenal.
They all have merits.
They do. I love that. That's my favorite analogy, is they're all like cakes.
It's mostly because I just like cake. But
listen, you're not wrong, and I'm pretty sure everybody likes cake, and if anyone who doesn't like cake, they're not to be trusted, and that is that.
Get out of here.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Bruce, for chatting with me this evening. Thank you for, talk to us about your event coming up, which is, again, for those of you that are just, tuning in right now, it is going to be the Spooky and Gay Picnic Cabaret. It's ran through Eventbrite. Check it out. The link is going to be in the description box, in the comment section down below. It's running October 29th through the 31st at 8 p.m. Is there anything that you wanted to plug? Anywhere that people, again, where can people find you and stalk you if they want to?
They can stalk me at my address, which is just feel free to follow me on my social media channels, BC Theatricals on Facebook and on Instagram. If you have any questions for me directly, you can actually email me too. It's info@BC Theatricals. Okay. I will answer it hopefully, or just message me in my DMs, whichever. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for tuning in with us tonight again. Thank you guys out there for watching. Thank you to everybody in the chat. And until next time, boys and girls, make sure that you keep it spooky. Bye.